Hey everybody, welcome in. We are so excited to be here with you today. Stephanie, I've got some pretty great questions. Are you ready?
I'm so ready.
Okay, awesome. So today we're going to be talking about expectations, which I think is a really tricky thing, and we'll dive more into that. But I'm wondering what expectations you have around the learning process that possibly don't serve you. And I'm also curious what would happen if you were to change or completely disregard these expectations, and how it might feel for you to be free of them.
Oh,
I know that's a lot. It's a lot.
no, it's like it's not a lot in that like the questions aren't a lot. It's just that I this is just something that I really struggle with, and so I'm looking forward to talking about it a little bit. Yeah. Oh, I I really struggle to learn new things in general, and I think it's because I am like a multi-sensory learner. I need to be surrounded by the information, regardless of what the information is, in like at least three different ways to really have it sink in. So I'm like kinesthetic, so I have to like feel what I'm doing. I'm very oral and visual at the same time. So it's like I kind of need to have like these like multi-sensory experiences to really internalize something. And for the longest time, I really struggled because somebody would just kind of show me something really fast and then I wouldn't get it. And over time, I started believing that I wasn't smart because I couldn't get things like really quickly.
No.
And I think that it's sort of one of those things where, like, I know that I'm an intelligent being, but I also understand that I'm like kind of a different type of learner. Like a lot of things I don't get right off the bat unless I have a plethora of experience in the field, you know. And just generally speaking, I do really need I need to have a really patient teacher, a really patient educator, no matter what that looks like. And I think that also is kind of ingrained in me from a pretty early age that I don't know, there's like not a lot of room to make mistakes, and so it was kind of like this situation where I don't know if it was like the chicken or the egg, but I would become so stressed in a new learning situation that like my brain would totally kind of shut down. So I wasn't able to learn anything because I was in stress mode. And actually, like the term for that that I really loved, one of my teachers from college used the term amygdala hijack, because the amygdala in your brain is the part of your brain that's responsible for emotions and memory of emotions, and also just kind of like I won't get too much into it because I'm not a brain expert, but basically that if your brain, your amygdala is hijacked, you can't think clearly, and if you're stressed, you can't learn. So I kind of learned over time that like if I was found in a situation where I had to learn something, I would become stressed because I felt like I was supposed to get it really fast. And because I was stressed, I actually couldn't learn the information. And so it was sort of like this double edged sword where I realized that, like, yes, I'm a multisensory learner, but also if I'm stressed because I feel like I'm supposed to get something right off the bat, like, I literally cannot learn because biologically I can't take in the information because my brain has started to shut down and it thinks that it's in fight or flight. So I think like understanding that now is really helpful because I still find myself in situations where I'm learning something new where I feel that shutdown, and I feel like I'm I mean, to be frank and not very eloquent, I feel like I'm stupid because I can't get something as quickly as I feel like I should. And I think that it's important to just be totally candid about it because I have so many adult students who say the exact same thing when they come to the piano, and they're like, I just feel like this should be easy. This is just something that I feel like should come really naturally to me. And like I'm talking about like me struggling with like frickin' I don't know, something really basic, like hanging a picture the right way. Like even little menial tasks like that, I still have this doubt in me that feels like I can't do it right, you know? And these people are talking about learning a frickin' amazing instrument that takes literally every part of your brain. And my adult students just beat the living daylights out of themselves because they don't get something right. And I'm just sitting here being like, oh my God. And then they would compare themselves to me, who has studied piano since I was 5 and literally like have been practicing since in different ways, now being 33, that's a lot of years. And a lot of my students have only been playing for like maybe a couple years at most, and so it's just interesting because comparison and also just expectations just totally ruin the learning process. And I think that, like, when we walk into a situation and we think that we're supposed to have it all together and we think we're supposed to just get things really fast, we do ourselves such a disservice, because learning something and being a beginner is a beautiful thing. And if your instructor or the person who's helping you learn something doesn't understand that, that's not your fault. Everyone is usually not very good at something that they're learning for the first time, and it's really important to be a beginner, because then you can remember what it's like when you're teaching someone, and you can remember that compassion and that patience that was required for you to learn something new, you know? And so I want to hear your feedback, Ashley, but I think, you know, how I would feel if I let go of that expectation that I was supposed to learn something really fast, and how would I feel if I let go of that idea of feeling stupid or not talented if I don't get something right off the bat. I would feel amazing. I would feel so free from all that old garbage and all that old baggage that doesn't serve me. And I want to live in that more, because that's what I preach all day and all night to my students. And I have to find a way to give that back to myself, you know? And I know that that's probably the hardest thing in the world to do, but anyway, it's a big question, and I think I just want to debunk the myth that it's abnormal to feel this way. And it's also something that we can completely overcome if we just give ourselves permission to be a beginner and to be empowered to be a beginner, and to let go of that false expectation that you have to learn like everybody else and you have to sound like everybody else and you have to get things really fast. Like, that's not true. That's not reality. And it's important to just kind of say, okay, like, in the musical world, it's also not reality, right? Like, this is a lifetime of learning this information, and it's really important to be real about that. So, what about you? What expectations do you have about the learning process that don't serve you, Ashley?
Whew. I think, yeah. Well, first of all, I agree with you. I think I'm similar in the way that I somehow internalized growing up that like it should be easy to learn. And I think the other thing that I internalized, or the message that I got a lot, or the way that I interpreted the messages that I was getting, was that I also like should already know it. And I think that that's even, it's related, but it's also even like a step before thinking I should be able to do it quickly. I think that in a lot of ways, growing up in school and like going to school for music theory, I always had this feeling that like everybody else knew something that I didn't know. So I think that can be especially damaging, like when we think that we should already know something. And I see this in my students of all levels and of all ages and of all abilities, when like we're going over a new concept, and if I ask them like, oh, do you know what this means, or have you heard of this before, and all of the sudden it's like these defenses and these walls go up of like, let me think about it. Okay, I know I should know this, like I know you probably told me this at one point, and blah blah blah. And like it's like, no, this is new. I don't expect you to know this. I'm just curious if you've been exposed to it anywhere else in your life. And that's a lot of times how those conversations go. And I think I wish, I have to catch myself a lot, because I think I do have this expectation that like I should know things, even if there's no reason that I should know them. This happens a lot with non-music related things. This happens a lot with like learning how to post a YouTube video, or learning how to post a podcast, or something like that. Like just things that I have to learn that go beyond my musical skills. I sometimes do have this expectation or this feeling like I should know more than I do, which makes no sense, and in a way is giving myself like way more power and credit than I have. Because if I've never been exposed to something, there's no way that I should know it or that I would have known it. So I think that's an especially dangerous one. And I think I think I can sometimes let go of that, because I think it's an old enough story or an old enough expectation that I recognize that one pretty quickly. And when I am able to get rid of it, or to not like live my life thinking I should know things, it opens me up to learning so much. And it makes me so much less afraid of learning, and less afraid of putting myself in situations that otherwise would have like caused so much anxiety and so much tension and so much negativity. I think there was a moment in my early 20s where, beyond college and beyond like my actual coursework that I was doing, I was really scared to learn new things. And I was terrified to put myself in situations where I might have no pre-existing knowledge, or where I didn't already have, some information. And so going into this phase in my life, I've worked really hard, like to notice for me when that like panic comes up, like, oh, I should already notice. That's a good point for me to like get curious. And it's also a good indication that like there's something there that I really want to learn, because I think that's when when it comes up the most for me too, is like when it's things that are really important to me that I really want to learn, that's when the most expectations that don't serve me come up. And so that's just something to keep in mind too, is like I think if it's something I don't care about, none of those expectations come up for me, because I'm not scared and my body or my like subconscious isn't trying to protect me. But when it's something I really care about and I really want to learn about, your mind is trying to protect you, and it's like, fear, fear, fear. I'm going to put anything, I'm going to incept all of this, want to learn with these things that are going to protect you and keep you from putting yourself in this vulnerable situation. So anyway, I see it with my adult students too. And I try to encourage them to like, use that fear, use those expectations to question, to reframe, to like recognize that it's actually something that they really care about and that they're feeling passionately about, and that we don't have to listen to those expectations or those false thoughts or whatever we want to call them that creep in. If we can recognize them, we can let go of them.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds simple. It's not simple like that, but it's possible, I think.
Yeah, but it's all about awareness, and I think it's interesting too, because I notice it manifest in myself and in my students, or just people in general, where I'll either go into this phase of like feeling like I should know it, or I feel like I should go into this phase of acting like I already know it and I don't need to be taught.
Oh my gosh, that's the worst. I think I used to do
Which
that so often.
I used to do it all the time, because it's kind of like living into that ego of like, of
Right.
course I know this already.
Oh
But
yeah.
I would always do it, and then I would be like, well, I don't understand this because you're not teaching this the right way, right? Because this is not my problem, this is your problem, or like projecting or being like, oh my God, I'm so stupid that I can't understand this. And it's like, and I remember it would be kind of like one or the other, and neither of those are true, right? Like, it's just that when you're a beginner, you have to be a beginner. And I think that the other important part is just, yeah, so like you said, like noticing it and being like, well, okay, that's not true. That I already know this, because I don't, clearly. And it's also not true that I can't learn this, because I, of course, can learn this, right? Everybody can learn this. Everybody can learn piano. Everybody can learn music. Everybody can learn any skill, as long as there's consistency, patience, perseverance, and a lot of self-compassion. And I think that it's just like great to be aware. And I hear it so much of the time with my students, and I sometimes just wish that they could be a fly on the wall when they watch me learn something new, because I think it would make them feel a lot better. And it's not because of any of the false beliefs that I mentioned early on in the podcast, because those are all false beliefs, with the exception of, yeah, we all are different types of learners, and I do love when I can learn in a multisensory way. But I ultimately understand, like, we all have the ability to learn complex, challenging things. And yeah, I just am grateful that we get to talk about this honestly. And I just hope that we all will have the courage to embrace that learning process. And the other thing I'm really trying to do as an educator, and as somebody I've played piano for my entire life almost, and my world continues to be rocked by it in every way. Like, music will always be hard in different ways, and that's wonderful, right? But I think that it's really important to be a beginner and a learner in areas that I don't know anything about. And so I think I'm also really going to recommit to being a beginner, not just with like what you were mentioning, like posting on YouTube, or like, but I would love to learn how to run my own sound, and I would love to learn how to record my own music, and I would love to learn how to speak a new language, and I would love to learn to go to that country and speak that language, and put myself in that true place of like true beginner, in a total area where I have no previous experience, and just really kind of, then I can deepen that empathy for the people who are coming to this instrument for the first time in their lives, and they're like in their 60s.
Yeah.
So it's just good stuff. I love these conversations. They're
Yeah.
so healthy and cathartic. I feel like, yeah.
Yeah. And I think for for those of you that are joining us that are somewhere, it doesn't matter where, if you're in the total beginner phase, if you've been at this for a while, I think just remaining open to learning and questioning those expectations. And I'm curious what your answers to those questions would be if you want to share with us. We would love to hear what your answers are. And if you're enjoying these conversations and if you're liking this, and if you're watching this on YouTube, you can go ahead and give us a thumbs up, or two thumbs up. And if you are listening to the podcast, then we would love it if you would go ahead and give us a rating or screenshot this and share it on your social media. We would love to get these messages across, out to more people, and to include more people in these conversations. So thank you so much for being here with us today. We are so grateful to you.